I'm Rachel Jones for the Finance News Network. Joining me from RAC Oncology is CEO Peter Molloy. Peter, welcome back to FNN.
Thank you, Rachel. Good to be back.
Now, RAC Oncology describes itself as a specialty pharmaceutical company that looks for drugs that are often overlooked by big pharma. What can you tell me about your drug, Byzantrine?
Byzantrine is a chemotherapy drug designed to treat a blood cancer called acute myeloid leukemia, AML. And this is a terrible disease with a very poor prognosis if you get it. It was a lost asset. We found it, and now we own it. We own it because we've filed new patents on the drug, and we have orphan drug designation, which gives us exclusivity. So our goal now is to finish off the development on this valuable drug and get it to market or put it in the hands of a partner.
And what does the development pathway look like for Byzantrine?
Well, our goal is to complete a registration study that will allow us to get marketing approval for Byzantrine in the US. Before we can do that, we've got to manufacture the drug, and fortunately we've succeeded in doing that. We've also got to have pre-IND discussions with the FDA to figure out the exact pathway and what the clinical trial is going to look like. We've had those discussions. The next step is to file what's called an Investigational New Drug application, or IND. We expect that's going to happen towards the end of the first quarter next year. That will position us, hopefully, to start the trial in the second half of next year.
And what is the size of the market and the patent position?
First of all, the patent position is such that we've recently filed new patents on this drug. This is an old drug, and the original patents have expired. We've filed new ones, and they have currency until 2034. And 2 of those patents are granted in the US, which is very important. The other part of the patent story is that we have orphan drug designation in the US, and that gives us 7 years of exclusivity from the date of registration approval. In terms of the market size, this is what we call an orphan disease because it's relatively rare, but even so, it's expected to be a multi-$100 million a year market in terms of sales. So the prize is certainly worth pursuing, and we're also actively pursuing a very important unmet medical need here in acute myeloid leukemia, AML.
And Peter, can you tell us what the trial will involve?
The trial will involve at least 100, maybe 200 subjects. They'll typically be adult subjects in this trial who have what's called relapsed refractory AML. That means that they've got acute myeloid leukemia that has proven to be resistant to other drugs or has relapsed after treatment with other drugs, which is a very common occurrence with this very difficult disease. The trial will measure things such as clinical response to our drug compared with alternative therapies. It will also measure things like overall survival and whether or not the patient can be transitioned to a bone marrow transplant.
And still on Byzantrine, the US FDA have given it a rare pediatric disease designation. What does this mean? Well,
this means that by doing a small study in childhood AML, in parallel to what we're doing with the adult relapsed refractory AML, potentially doing that small study, we could be awarded what's called a priority review voucher. Now, a priority review voucher is essentially a ticket to a fast-track FDA review that you can sell to other companies. And our intention would be to sell it. There's a very active secondary market for these priority review vouchers, or PRVs, and they can sell for more than $100 million each. So it's a very valuable new designation, which is currently really not reflected in our market valuation.
And now let's talk about your financials and your share price. What is your cash position and how far will that take you?
At 30 June, we had $3.7 million in cash, which is projected to be enough to cover us for at least the current financial year. Over the last 9 months or so, our share price has trended down substantially, much more than we believe it should have, and I think it's left us in a position where we're significantly undervalued.
And last question now, Peter. Why should investors consider adding RAC Oncology to their portfolios?
Our current share price indicates a valuation of only $11 million, and yet within the next 6 to 9 months we could have a phase 3 oncology asset in human trials. There's a big gap there in potential valuation and upside for race oncology investors.
Peter Molloy, thanks for the updates.
Thank you.